So I'm Dr. Rakesh Gupta, President and Director of Public Health Strategic Institute for Public Health Education and Research, and I'm a former Director Health Services of Punjab. So I welcome you all to this important uh, webinar on taking care of your eyes and common eye ailments. This is being done as part of the celebration of the World Sight Day. So as we all know that nearly everyone on the planet, they will experience an eye health issue in their lifetime, and more than 1 billion people worldwide do not have access to the eye care services. 1.1 billion people they live with vision loss, and 90% of the vision loss is preventable or treatable. To address the bigger picture at the country and the global level, we need to be aware of our own eye health. And so, World Sight Day theme for 2021 is all about love your eyes. So, love your eyes is all about being aware of your own eye health. And if we are able to get a sight test or recommend others to do the same, our eyes can also tell us much about our general health. All our panelists, including Dr. Ashok Sharma, Dr. Sonu Goyal, and Dr. Rajan Sharma, they are very eminent people, experts, and they'll be telling you about the common eye ailments. Next. So in 2020 in South Asia, there were an estimated 340 million people with vision loss. And of these 12 million people, they were almost blind. And all vision loss proved prevalence rate is about 18.2% in the Southeast region, which includes India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, and Bhutan. Next. In India, the prevalence of blindness in more than 50 years, it is about 8.5%, and the childhood blindness is 0.8 in 1,000 kids. In children 5 to 15 years of age, the visual impairment is as high as 6.4%. Next. So it is important to get the eyes of children checked earliest possible. So Vision 2020 is the right to sight and global initiative to reduce avoidable, preventable, and curable blindness by the year 2020. That is our aim. And the diseases we target are cataract, refractive errors, childhood blindness, corneal blindness, glaucoma, and diabetic retinopathy. Next. So we have Government of India has initiated this program, that National Program for Control of Blindness, since 1976, and now it is called NPCB and VI, that is visual impairment. And the aim is to reduce the prevalence of blindness from 1.5% to 0.3% by 2020, and to establish an infrastructure efficiency to cater to new cases of blindness each year to prevent any future backlog. To achieve maximum reduction in avoidable blindness through optimal utilization of available resources, as you all know, that government resources are very limited, and we need to work with private doctors and with NGOs. And the program that includes comprehensive eye care, school eye screening, and community-based rehabilitation. Next. So as I told you, the activities of NPCB, they help the NGOs and the private doctors as well to do cataract operations, and they pay for it. And there's involvement of NGOs. Even the infrastructure development, that is civil works, is also undertaken under this program. And then IC activities are undertaken. Management information system is in place under NPCB. And then we do monitoring and evaluation. School eye screening is there. And very important, that control of vitamin A deficiency, that is a very important part of NPCB. Next. So there is an initiative which was undertaken by Punjab government initially, that was way back in 2015, that is Corneal Blindness Backlog Free Initiative. And now we want to include this initiative in the Tri-City, that is Chandigarh, Panchkula, and Mohali as well. There are about 1.2 million corneal blindness people in the country, the corneal blind people, and about 20,000 to 30,000 cases that get added every year. In addition, we have 5 to 6 million unilateral corneal blind people in India, though basically initially we are targeting only the bilateral blind. So India has made great strides in addressing the blindness overall, but it lags in treating corneal blindness primarily it is due to the lack of available corneal tissue. So awareness campaigns and eye bank development efforts in the past 7 years, they have shown some kind of success. But with increased transplant surgery, it is now the transplant surgeries are increasing from 2011 onwards. However, this growth rate is far below the vision goal of 1 lakh transplants per year by 2020. So, in unusual fallout of COVID-19 pandemic, eye donations they have seen a dramatic fall, as you know, because of the COVID pandemic. There is very lesser number of corneal tissue available for transplants. Next. Sort of next, please. Yeah. So nationally, because of the COVID, also the fewer donations have led to a serious shortage of the corneal tissue needed for transplants to restore vision in people suffering from loss of eyesight due to irreparable damage of the tissue. And there has been a substantial decrease in eye donations and the number of keratoplasty surgeries in the COVID pandemic. The opportunity that exists for Indian eye banking to grow rapidly and sustainably by leveraging global best practices with the leading eye banks in India. Dr. Ashok Sharma, who is one of the panelists, is a cornea hero. He was awarded a cornea hero award by Cypher, and he is doing a very good job in eye banking and keratoplasty surgeries. A virtual national consultation on the issue to promote eye banking was held under Padma Shri Dr. Vikas Mahatme. He is a member of the Rajya Sabha. Recently, we did this webinar on the national consultation. And it was suggested that there may be a constitutional task force to promote eye banking. And there's a plan to make Chandigarh or the Tri-City and other states as corneal blindness backlog free. We may involve SPOs and PCV, that is state program officers of all the neighboring states, to initiate this process in the neighboring states. Next. So I welcome all the eminent panelists and the participants. Dr. Ashok Sharma, as I told you, he is a very eminent corneal surgeon. Professor Dr. Sonu Goyal, he is from the Department of Community Medicine, PGI Chandigarh. Dr. Rajan Sharma is also with the Dr. Ashok Sharma Cornea Center. And next. So first of all, I think we can ask Professor Dr. Sonu Goyal about the public health issues which are related to the general care of eyes. Dr. Sonu Goyal is Director RCTC Chandigarh, that is the Resource Center for Tobacco Control. He is Professor in Department of Community Medicine, and he has got 17 years of rich experience in public health and health management. And he is an alumni of Johns Hopkins School of Public Health, Baltimore, US, and from a university in Netherlands also. So I welcome Dr. Sonu Goyal. Dr. Sonu, so will you just let us know what are the common ailments which lead to corneal blindness?
So thank you, Dr. Rakesh. First of all, I'd like to congratulate Strategic Institute for Public Health Education and Research for initiating a talk on a very important day, that is World Sight Day. So from the public health point of view, if we say eye is really a very important organ of our body. You know, out of all the sensory organs, we have 5 sensory organs. Out of all sensory organs, eye perceive 80% of the senses of our body. So that means out of all 5, eye contribute the majority of the senses, and rest all contributes to just 20%. Eye is also important because of the fact that we see the world through eyes. So we can ask a person who doesn't have eyes that how the world is there. So that is a very importance of eye. If we say what, as Dr. Rakesh has also told, that most of the blindness, the causes of blindness which is there are preventable. So around 70 to 80% of the causes of blindness are preventable. So that is really important now for us, that we can take care of those causes so that these can be prevented. Now, what are those? what are those causes? So first of all, the first cause is cataract. So everybody, I think here in the audience might be knowing the cataract, or we call as motia, Safed motia. So that contributes to around 60% or more than 60% of the preventable blindness or blindness. So normally this cataract happens in later part of our life in age, and people don't think that is important to be treated, and that leads to blindness later on. So I think Dr. Ashok Sharma is with us, so he will tell you about this particular aspect of thing. And I urge that whenever you are elderly or anybody who is actually in your family who is suffering from this cataract, must be treated immediately. The second cause is refractive error. So refractive error is normal thing, no? We wear glasses for that refractive error. So we don't think that it is very important, and we don't wear glasses sometimes, and we don't take care of our eyes in that condition. So 20% of blindness is caused by this refractive errors. So if we don't correct this refractive error, which it may cause blindness. So this comes to be around 80+% due to cataract and refractive error. Then the another cause, which is relatively less common, is glaucoma. So glaucoma is normally, if we say in layman's language, it is pressure behind the eyes. So that is also really important, and it contributes 6%. And other causes are corneal blindness or even posterior segment disorders, some surgical complications. So they are the others. So what I'm trying to emphasize here is the cataract, refractive error. At least these two, one should be very, one should take care of these things, and immediately, whenever we see some whitish thing within the eyes, or whenever we see that our child is not able to see, so then one should immediately go to the doctors. Now, if we say childhood blindness, I was talking about the adult blindness. In childhood, the main cause is again uncorrected refractive errors. So same thing, that people, that normally the children and their parents don't care about the eyesight, and sometimes it lead to the blindness. The another cause is vitamin A deficiency. So it is now becoming very less, although initially it was quite high, and I think along with the vitamin A schedule, along with the immunization schedule, so they give vitamin A. Then there are other things like cataract even in the children because of developmental anomalies, some congenital from birth, some anomalies are there, and there are other reasons which cause this corneal or preventable blindness. So these are the major causes of blindness. So Dr. Rakesh, if we want to tell about how we can take care of this, or right now?
Now I'll just like to ask you about because diabetic retinopathy, hypertensive retinopathy, these are very common now in India, especially the diabetic retinopathy. So I'll just request you to let the audience know what kind of diet they should take to control hypertension and blood and diabetes.
Right. I think this is really a very good question was asked, because of the fact that now hypertension and diabetes are increasing day by day. You see, I think in your families, somebody or the other might be suffering from either hypertension or diabetes, which is now becoming very common, especially in Punjab. If we see 1/3 of adults, so every third adult is suffering from hypertension. And similarly, every sixth person, 6th to 7th person is suffering from diabetes. So this is relatively very high. So what we need to do, normally what happens when the diabetes is there, hypertensive is there, so over a period of time, the eye becomes affected. So what we need to do? So first of all, we need to control this diabetes and hypertension through medication. Normally what happens, either we don't check our BP or sugar regularly, So what I advise, first of all, to you is after this seminar, one should, especially when you are over 40s, one should check your BP. There are now BP apparatus available. You can buy apparatus and you can get it checked at your home. And also there are glucometers available. So I think first advice which I give to you is those who don't have this BP machine or glucometer should buy one and get it checked. Because if it is detected early, then we can prevent a lot of complications of the eye and of other organs. Number two is the diet. Second is medicines. So medicines are really important. You know, when you are detected with diabetes or hypertension, sometimes people say that let us not take medicines. Medicine will do harm effects. But I must tell you that if you don't take medicines on time, some organs gradually becomes damaged, and you will not be able to regain that damaged part if you take medicines later. So damage means damage. So that is why the medication should be started, hypertension and diabetes, as soon as possible, as soon as you detect, and with the consultation of your physician. The third thing is diet. Diet is really important. Why? And because most of the thing you can do by diet. And I think most of you know that in diabetes, one should not take sugar. That is really important. So sugar doesn't mean that one is taking sugar by spoon or something. So one should not take sugary drinks. If you see, some people say the fruit juices are not harmful. I say that fruit juices are not harmful to that extent which the Coca-Cola or the artificial juices are there. But yes, fruit juices also contain sugar. So it is better to take fruit as such rather than the fruit juices. Because if you take fruit juices, it may lead to sudden increase in the sugar. And especially those orange or Moshmi juice, I think these juices should be avoided in diabetes. And you should all avoid these uh, sweets, especially when we see as a doctor after Diwali or after Holi, these sugar levels are generally high because people have started binge eating those sweets during these festivals. So one should, even if one has to take, one should take a very small piece of a bite of sweet, always in moderation. And also for hypertension, I think we should avoid added salt. So what I used to do is I never add salt to the salads or to the curd. People usually add salt to the curd as well. So one should not add salt to curd, and avoid pickles because pickles contains achar or pickles contain lot of salt content into it. And similarly, papad, they are very high rich in salt. And all those processed foods, pizza, burger, and these foods have very high content of trans fats, which are very dangerous fats, and also salt. So these are some of my advices, which if you follow, then I think you should avoid getting complications from diabetes and hypertensive eye disorders.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Sonu, for letting us know about the dietary, what diet we should take for preventing diabetes mellitus, or at least managing. If we are already suffering from diabetes or hypertension, we can manage it well. So thank you. So I like to welcome Mrs. Indu Luthra, Mr. Jitendra, Mr. Agnivesh Thakur. So they have also joined, and Jitendra, Mr. Himanshu Chauhan, Adarsh Pathania. So I can read these names. So now I'll request Dr. Ashok Sharma to kindly know us about some of the ailments. Dr. Ashok Sharma, he is Director Cornea Center, Chandigarh, and he has got more than 30 years of experience in eye banking and cornea transplant surgery. And he is the most well-known cornea surgeon in the region. And he was instrumental in establishing Eye Bank Society, Chandigarh, and was felicitated by the Toon Society and given state honor by Mr. Dhumal, who was our Chief Minister of Himachal Pradesh, and for the outstanding contribution to the field of eye donation and cornea transplant surgery. And he has got many achievements to his credit. And as I told you earlier, he was awarded Cornea Hero Award by Cypher. and PGIMEA last year. So, Dr. Ashok, you are welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
And we'll just like to ask you, is there a hope for a corneal blind patient?
Yeah, I think rightly pointed out by Professor Sonu, different causes of blindness. We know that the eye functions just like a camera, and two optical surfaces, that is like cornea and lens, they not only transmit the light onto the retina or fovea, but also focuses it. So once something goes wrong with either like cornea or with the lens, the person is not able to see. So any disease of the cornea, whether that is due to infection, we call it corneal ulcers, or due to chemical injury, due to other injury, mechanical injuries, or due to nutritional deficiencies, there is bound to be a corneal scar, or which we call in local language as fola. So once that happens, the person cannot see with the eye and is rendered as blind, unilateral. If it happens in both eyes, some diseases like herpes simplex keratitis, dystrophies, or Fuchs dystrophy, all these conditions, they happen in both eyes. So it can be bilateral also. So once this happens, then corneal blindness is there. And definitely we have hope for them. We can do corneal transplant and the vision can be restored. And it's heartening to know that the results of the corneal transplants are highest of all the organs being transplanted in the body. More than 95% success rate is there for good prognosis cases. So very good chances of recovery of vision. The only thing is that we need to have the good quality donor eyes, for which Dr. Rakesh has already hinted out that we need to promote the eye donation and we need good quality of eyes. So we have different kind of procedures also these days. We can do pentating grafts, we can do deep anterior lamellar keratoplasty, which is safer because there is less rejection. Then we have sutureless corneal transplants for endothelial diseases like DSAC or DMAC. And even for limbal stem cell deficiency disorders, we can do limbal stem cell transplants, and then we can do corneal transplants. We have a large number of procedures with us, and whichever procedure is needed for a particular patient, we can do that and we can give them sight. So definitely there is a hope for these patients.
So thank you, Dr. Ashok Sharma. And actually, government is also doing a lot to promote eye donations. And I'll request all through you, you must ask all your relatives and friends to donate their eyes. And it is not important to fill up the form. It is important that whenever a mishappening occurs in the family, the nearest eye bank should be informed and the cornea donated. And now, luckily for us, that this column of eye donation is also included in the for driving lessons form. So it is a good kind of awareness. So Dr. Ashok, cataract, as we all know, that it is a very important cause of blindness. Maybe temporary because it is, treatable cause. And just let us know about the cataract and the modes of treatment available for treating cataract.
The cataract management has gone a lot change in recent years because of advancements in the technology. Earlier, we used to do like in the beginning when we started our careers, we used to do like intracapsular cataract surgery, in which we used to remove whole lens, and then like large number glasses were given like +12, +14. So these days it's not like that. These days the surgery has totally changed. These days the surgery is basically what we call is a phacoemulsification through a very small incision, and intraocular lens implantation is also through the very small incision. So because of these things, the indications for the surgery have also changed. These days it's according to the visual needs of the individual. Sometimes a person who is driving may feel difficulty during night driving, or may feel difficulty in the afternoon because at that time the light directly falls into the eye, and the lenticular opacities, they cause the blurred vision, and patient can have problems. So and some of the patients who are regularly, like all of us are regularly watching TVs and doing this work on the screens. So if we are not enjoying that work, and if our lifestyle is being affected by the cataract, so the indication for the surgery is there. It's not like the earlier days when the total abolition of the vision is there, then only we used to do the surgery. So that is regarding the timing of the surgery. Regarding the lens implants, again, there is a lot of change in that. Earlier, we used to implant like PMMA lenses, which we normally used to implant at that time, and a large incision, then few sutures also. These days, it's all like foldable lenses. We have injectors. We load these lenses into the injector, and then just like a injection, these lenses, they are inserted inside the eye, and inside the eye they get unfolded and they are placed. We also have these days lenses for to counter the cylindrical numbers. If the patient a high cylindrical number, we can put toric lens to counter that. Or patient has visual needs where he can need to see at a distance, then at the intermediate distance, and also at the near also. So we have multifocal lenses also to give them optimum vision at all these distances. So all these advancements are there according to the need of the person. The type of the surgery and type of the lens can be customized, and good visual recovery can be given to the patient.
Yeah. So I think it is important that the timing of the surgery. So earlier we used to say that जब पक जाए तब आना, when patient had 6/60 vision or even less than that. But now the things have changed, the requirements have changed. So we prefer that patient should get operated early, and it becomes easy also.
Not only that, if the patient does not get operated at a proper time and the lens gets mature or hypermature, the surgery becomes difficult, and the complication rate will go high. And also, according to the age, sometimes the vision is retained, but the nuclear cataracts, the lens becomes hard. And if it becomes very hard, then the surgery again becomes very difficult, and more of the inflammation, more of the endothelial cell loss may occur. So it's better to get surgery done at appropriate time.
Yeah. And since you are doing refractive surgeries also, so these days youngsters, they are very keen to get the glasses removed. And what do you think? Is it safe to get the LASIK done? And what is your advice on this? To the youngsters, basically, only youngsters, they get this LASIK done most of the time.
Yes, see, the refractive surgery is a very exciting area, both for patient as well as for the surgeon also. And the refractive surgery procedures, or if I say laser vision correction, has evolved over the last 3 or 4 decades. And currently, I think we have very, very good procedures again to take care of the each and every person who needs who does not want to wear glasses. So the procedures are definitely safe. Only thing is that whether the person is suitable for the laser vision correction, that should be determined. Broadly speaking, we have criterias like age should not be below 18. It used to be earlier, but now we want to do refractive surgery at a little later age, and maybe 20, 22, 24. And then the number should be stable. It should not be that the minus number is increasing. Then we cannot do the laser vision correction. And if we have now, like, if I broadly classify these surgical procedures, if we consider laser vision correction only, we have at least 3 types of procedures. One is surface ablation, where we do not make flap and we apply the laser directly after removing the epithelium. This procedure is extremely helpful for those patients who have thin corneas. Then we have LASIK. LASIK, we have Contura vision, and the blade-free LASIK, where the microkeratomy is not used, but femtosecond is used to make the flap. So we can get much higher correction than we used to get earlier with the microkeratome. Then we have got SMILE, where we do not ablate the cornea, but we only remove the certain thickness of the cornea, and cuts are made by the femtosecond laser. So all these procedures, they have made the laser vision correction safe. And those patients who are not fit for laser vision correction, either due to corneal problem, thin cornea or irregular cornea, or due to high number, we can go for the lens based surgery also, like ICL or refractive lens exchange, depending upon the age of the patient and requirement of the patient.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Shaw. So we'll get back to you. First, we'll ask some questions from Dr. Rajan as well. So Dr. Rajan, he is in the Cornea Center. He's working in Cornea Center, Dr. Shok Sharma's Cornea Center, and he is MBBS and MS from Bengaluru. And he has done fellowship in cornea and external diseases from Lions Eye Hospital, Bengaluru. And he has special interest in cornea research and application of anthropology in cornea. So you're welcome, Dr. Rajan. So
thank you, sir.
I'd like to ask you, are glasses helpful in preventing eyesight stabilization? Because eyesight stabilization, the number stabilization. Because many people, when they come to us, they ask whether if we start using glasses, will the number increase or will it stabilize? So what do you say about this?
Sir, good evening, first of all, to all panelists. Eyeglasses is the first mode of treatment for any refractive error. As far as myopia is concerned, myopia nowadays has increased prevalence because of young generation doing more of near work, and more of near work has been associated with increased tendency of the eyeball to increase, as has been seen in populations like China. So the first mode of treatment is always glasses, spectacles, and it is true that if the person is or the child is using glasses frequently and constantly, the refractive error should stabilize until and unless the child is predisposed to pathological myopia, where the number will increase to a higher severity, and then he may need further evaluation for retina and other associated complications. But the topic that I mistook the topic. I was thinking that it will be more of prevention with these eye shields in today's times. So basically, as I would like to talk more on that also, because in today's era where people are more into online this education, and online IT professionals are into online jobs and more of screen time usage, this blue light which comes through the screens of most of these devices, it can harm the retina. So the wavelength of this blue light would be around 400 to 500 nanometers, and can potentially harm the retina and the eyes of the patient. So along with the spectacles, the blue light protection, these cut glasses are also very helpful in overall health of the person. So apart from this, the rationale actually for introduction of blue light is, as I told you, is to mitigate the risk on the retina toxicity. And also the other thing which patients nowadays can use is the anti-reflective coating, which is talked about when a person goes to an optician or optical person for getting his glasses and spectacles made. The anti-reflective interference coating can be applied on the front and the back of the lens, which actually helps to selectively attenuate the blue light, as I told you. So these are the things which can help the patient long way. Also, the other thing is these lenses can help to reduce the risk of ARMD once the patient gets old, which will be very helpful to the eye health of the patient. Apart from this, there is UV protection glasses also, which is helpful not inside but outside when the patient is away for like for example, trekking or outdoor activities. That is also helpful. Recently, we had published an article when I was working in Solan, in Medical College MMU Solan. We had got consecutive patients with retina macular holes because of more of this sun gazing during winters. So it was one of the first case series in the world where somebody has published retina holes in sun gazing without snow capping areas, and the altitude was also like mid Himalayas. It was not very higher reaches of the Himalayas. So it got published in Turkish Journal of Ophthalmology. So the role of UV protection of glasses is also very important.
So
Yes.
thank you, Dr. Rajan. I think you have taken up a very important issue about the UV rays and the anti-reflective coated glasses. So that is good, I think.
Yes.
And these days, because of the COVID era, the COVID pandemic, so many people are doing, most of the times they are working at home. So all the day they gaze the laptops and their phones. So please let us know about the computer vision syndrome.
Yes, the computer vision syndrome is also known as digital eye strain. So it is a group of eye vision related disorders which results from prolonged use of computer screens or digital devices. Now more seen nowadays because of online classes and online working. So the symptoms may include eye strain, headache, blurring of vision, dry eyes, those dry eye symptoms like grittiness and foreign body sensation, and even patient can complain of neck and shoulder pain. So this possible reasons can be poor lighting, and in the room, glare from the screen, improper viewing distance from the screen, poor posture while viewing the online screens, and very importantly, uncorrected visual refractive errors. So yeah, sir. So the treatment goes a long way from the most important thing would be to correct the refractive error of the patient first, correcting the posture of the patient while viewing the screens, anti-glare screens of the devices, and we can ask the patient to blink frequently while using the devices. And one rule which is very commonly told to the patient is the 20-20-20 rule. So in this rule, the patient is asked to take a 20-second break every 20 minutes, during which the patient has to see something which is 20 feet away. So this helps most of the patients because if the patient is viewing the device for a long time, so unconsciously patient stops blinking that frequently. So this also helps the patient really well. Otherwise, we can also prescribe lubricant eye drops and artificial eye drops, which patient can use 4 to 6 times a day, which will also help to alleviate these symptoms.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Rajan. I think this is a very important issue these days, this computer vision syndrome.
Yes, sir.
So, and just let us know something about the eye allergies, especially these are more prevalent during the summers.
Yes, sir.
Especially
yes, sir. Sir, it can be seasonal allergies, seasonal allergic conjunctivitis, or it can be perennial, which is all the year, sometimes seen in patients all year long. So in this allergic conjunctivitis, patient will firstly complain with the hallmark sign, which is itching. So this is how we can help differentiate between the allergic conjunctivitis and probably a dry eye or other issues going on with the conjunctiva. So itching, redness and watering will be the common symptoms, and the parents can should look for when the symptoms have increased, if it's seasonal and in which season the symptoms are increasing, so that we can help the patient to prevent these problems by avoiding, for example, outside exposure during that season, like pollen grains, or during probably rainy season, like these seasonal mold spores, and the parents can keep the house clean from the household dust, which can also increase the symptoms. Apart from these, there can be cold compression, for example, from the parent side. These are the preventive strategies, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I think I like to add that people, they just go to a chemist shop and they just buy
Correct, sir.
medication which are available
Correct, sir.
on the over the counter, especially
Yes,
the
sir.
steroid drops, and these can be
Steroid
very
drug.
because
Correct.
patients having allergic symptoms and then they're landing up with a glaucoma, and that is a very dangerous thing. So I think we should caution all the patients that
Correct.
they should go to a an ophthalmologist for these treatment, any kind of treatment, in fact, for the eyes.
Correct. Especially for,
So
like you said, sir, very correctly, sir, cautioning the patient for the over-the-counter steroid eye drops is most important in our field, because most of these chemists, or maybe even in government circles where optometrists may be handling the OPDs, for example, if the doctor is not available. So we
yeah,
very commonly we have seen the steroid eye drops are prescribed for even disorders which can be where we can avoid the steroids, and the patient tends to use it for a long time, and which is catastrophic for the patient. Correct, sir.
maybe the prescription, I mean, uh, by the chemist is more of the steroids. The
Yes, sir.
optometrist and the
Correct, sir.
ophthalmologist, they're trained well
Correct,
for
sir.
not to prescribe steroids for such
Correct.
ailments. So,
Correct.
Dr. Ashok, I'll just ask about that diabetic retinopathy, because we were talking about that in India, diabetes is very common now, and the diabetic retinopathy is one of the very common complications. So, what patients can do, and when they are once diagnosed, and how they should be treated?
Basically, I'm an anterior segment surgeon, so I will be just highlighting that any patient who is diabetic and has diabetic for like more than say 10 years, all these patients, they should be then screened for diabetic retinopathy. Because these patients, once they start having diabetic retinopathy and cystoid macular edema, they are bound to lose the vision, and diabetic retinopathy is going to progress further. So they should definitely consult the retinal surgeons and who will take care of them. And we have these days good devices like OCT, where the cystoid macular edema can be detected at the earliest. And accordingly, like depending upon the stage of the disease, if it is required, the intravitreal anti-VEGFs or injections can be given. And if it further progresses, then proliferative diabetic retinopathy and lasers can be done. And for certain problems like if we develop fractional detachment or vitreous hemorrhage, which is not resolving, then surgery like pars plana vitrectomy can be done. So what I want to emphasize is that any patient who is having a diabetes of long duration, patient should definitely get screened. And I also would request the general surgeons also, and all those who are listening to us, any of their relatives having diabetes of long duration, they should send for screening at least. And once patient is screened, definitely the treatment can be done. Dr. Rakesh, we are not hearing you. Dr. Rakesh, we are not hearing you.
I'm sorry. Yeah. So I think it's a very important issue that all diabetics, they should get their retina checked, the fundus checked every 6 months, and if not possible to get it done every 6 months, at least once in a year. So Dr. Rajan, I'll ask you about the very common ailment, glaucoma, and it is called silent. It causes blindness very silently.
Yes,
so what
sir.
will you say about that glaucoma?
So glaucoma is correctly, like you told, it's the silent thief of the eyesight, because the patient, until and unless patient reaches a very advanced stage of glaucoma, he doesn't recognize the symptoms. which in very advanced cases, patient sees it as when we call it a tunnel vision, when the peripheral vision is almost gone. So the silent thief of the vision is because of the ganglion cell loss, as we know, and the global burden of this is reported to be around 80 million, and in India alone, it's like around 11.2 million people in the age group of more than 40 years. So this large population is actually important because it's an irreversible disease, but also preventable disease if the screening of the glaucoma is properly initiated in the population. So we can target specific risk groups in the population where risk factors are positive. Like for example, if in the age group of more than 40 years, where people are more predisposed for having open angle glaucoma, as it's seen to be prevalence is to be around 2% in this age group. Also, ethnic predisposition, like in the darker races, it's more common, or in fact, people with family history where glaucoma patients are already being treated. First degree relatives are more at risk than the second degree relatives. Also, people with thinner corneas and people with systemic diseases like diabetes or hypertension, and even neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's are more predisposed for open angle glaucoma. So in all these patients, we can screen for glaucoma and frequent intraocular pressure checkup so that we can catch the disease early and stop it from progressing to the severe stages.
So Dr. Rajan, I think it's very important that 40 plus people at least, they should get themselves screened for glaucoma, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
And will you let us know about that we get that foreign body, because everyone in their lifetime, they'll get someday they'll get some kind of foreign body. So what should be immediately done?
Sir,
and how to prevent it and how to treat it?
Prevention, sir, it's mostly when it's seen with these people working in small scale industry, like the grinders and welders. So in this population, it's very commonly seen, like the corneal, superficial corneal foreign body, where actually the patient can't really do anything apart from reporting to the ophthalmologist early, because very commonly it's seen that they try to remove the foreign bodies through their own. Some co-worker will be removing with a currency note or something, which will lead to more severe diseases, pathology like a corneal ulcer. But if it's like a household injury, like a dust, for example, in house, some dust has fallen into the eye where the patient knows it's not a very injurious, severe injury. We can ask the patient to wash the eye if there is clean water, but that's also problematic because sometimes a patient will use tap water and tap water will be infectious. Yeah. So in all such cases, it's better to report to the ophthalmologist, and so that proper removal of the foreign body with the normal saline or ringer lactate can be done, and then appropriate antibiotics can be started.
Yeah. So thank you, Dr. Rajan. And so from my side, it will be the last question to Dr. Ashok Sharma. So sir, what is your advice to the contact lens wearers? When do you suggest a person to use contact lenses, and what are the precautions to be taken after they are prescribed contact lenses?
See, contact lenses are largely used for cosmetic reasons only. Those who wish to avoid glasses and still they are either waiting for the refractive surgery or they are not suitable candidates for refractive surgery, these patients, they wear contact lenses. And most of these patients, they wear soft contact lenses. The only issue is that some of them are very casual in wearing their contact lenses, and that is the reason they land up with very serious problems like infections, corneal ulcers, and GPC, or sometimes corneal abrasions. So all these problems. So some of the precautions which I can suggest on the basis of my long experience is that one is that those youngsters who are residing in the hostels, they should not exchange their contact lenses. It is very common that somebody has got cosmetic contact lenses, or colored contact lenses, so they will exchange. So the contact lenses should not be exchanged at all. The other precaution is that you should always handle the contact lenses after washing your hands with the soap and water, and then let the hands get dry, and then only handle the contact lenses, and do not contaminate your contact lenses with the water. As Dr. Rajan suggested, that water is never sterile. You have always bacteria in it, and you are bound to have bacteria adhesion to the contact lenses. And then the major complication comes when the patient sleeps with the contact lenses. Contact lens wearer should never sleep with the contact lenses, because that is I would say suicidal, because contact lenses do impair the oxygen supply to the cornea, and once the patient sleeps with the contact lenses on, he is bound to have hypoxia, and then bacterial adhesion is always there, so they're bound to get infection also. So all these precautions are required, and also I would highlight that they should get contact lenses dispensed from the ophthalmologist rather than from any person, because any person other than ophthalmologist will not give them proper precautions or proper instructions how to use contact lenses. Hygiene is so important that I would give an example. One of the French national was traveling India. Now we always consider our foreigners that they are more hygienic and they take care of contact lenses like expectedly very efficiently. This person was visiting Dharamshala. He was studying carrying on some study on Buddhism. So he came and he had very severe Pseudomonas corneal ulcer. And when I asked him how you are using your contact lenses, how you are managing your contact lenses, you will not believe this person was using saliva to insert his contact lenses and saliva to sterilize his contact lenses. So you can imagine and what would be the condition of the eye. So ocular hygiene and hygienic measures are most important, and we should take contact lens wear as serious option, because if we are not serious, we are bound to have sometimes serious problems.
So it is really a very eye-opener that somebody can use saliva to put on the contact lenses. Actually, I have not come across such a patient. So,
he treated this patient for Pseudomonas corneal ulcer. He improved, but then he was to go back, and then he went back with the corneal opacity, of course.
It is very strange that such a, I mean, he has come from France and he must be, educated person.
And so sometimes by mistake, the people may use even chemicals instead of contact lens solution. So they should also be very, very cautious when they are using contact lens solutions. It should be the contact lens solution only when they are putting the lenses in that.
Yeah. So thank you, Dr. Ashok. So thank you, Dr. Rajan and Dr. Ashok, for enlightening us about these.
Dr. Rakesh, I think there is one question from Madam Luthra that can she donate eyes at the age of 85 years?
Yeah. So please answer that question. Yeah, you can answer that question.
Yes, madam, definitely you can donate the eyes. Definitely there is no issue on that. Because these days after donation in the eye bank, the eyes are evaluated, specular microscopy is done, endothelial cells are assessed, and depending upon the endothelial cell count, these eyes are used for the corneal surgery. At those eyes where the endothelial cell count is less than 2000, these eyes are used to save the eyes for those patients who have corneal ulcer or corneal perforation. But definitely you can definitely donate eyes.
So any participant, they are welcome to ask. Yeah, Vanita ji, can you just unmute yourself? Please unmute yourself.
Yeah, hello, I'm Dr. Vanita. I'm actually Mrs. Luthra's and Dr. Luthra's daughter, yeah, and live in Norway. So
Welcome.
I joined late, of course, but sorry about that. But I don't know whether you guys talked about contact lenses in keratoconus patients, especially teenagers, and what's your experience with that? And also, I don't know if you've touched upon corneal cross-linking treatment for keratoconus and contact lenses after that.
Actually, Dr. Vinita, actually we were targeting only the patients. So normally these things are talked about when the patients they approach us. But
Okay.
definitely, I think Dr. Ashok can say something about these issues.
Yeah, Dr. Vinita, definitely collagen cross-linking is the standard of care these days for those patients who have keratoconus and that has evidence of progression, if the keratoconus is progressing. Now, the progression is more often seen in children. So whenever we have progression, we do collagen cross-linking, and the procedure is quite simple, that we remove the epithelium. Then
I know
put the
that I've
Yeah.
been doing a lot of cross-linking myself,
So
but I just
that-
wanted to
Yeah.
ask you about your experience of contact lenses, specialized contact lenses for keratoconus, because the normal lenses are not effective.
We use all type of contact lenses for keratoconus patients. Of course, like the routine soft contact lenses are only for the myopic patients or myopic astigmatism. If we have to use soft lenses for keratoconus patients, we go for Kerasoft lenses, which gives very good comfort and good correction for the astigmatism or irregular astigmatism. RGP lenses are the best lenses for keratoconus treatment. And of RGP, if we talk, we have RGP which are made in India, but then we have Rose K contact lenses, which I have very rich experience, and we are very happy with the outcome of these lenses. But the only problem is that some of the patients, they get irritation with these lenses, sometimes displacement, especially for those patients who have very
irregular corneas.
Deep corneas. And for these patients, we do use mini scleral contact lenses. And the results of the mini scleral contact lenses are definitely, in our experience, better than all these lenses. These are more comfortable also and provide good vision. And especially those patients who have associated dry eye, and some of the patients who have dry eye only, we have treated these patients with mini scleral contact lenses, and we have got very good results. Patients are very comfortable. They are able to do their routine activities very efficiently.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Vinita. And will you like to add something? I mean, since you are a doctor, an ophthalmologist yourself, can you say something about prevention of eye injuries?
Eye injuries?
In Indian context, yeah, in Indian context.
Okay, in Indian context, yeah. Here, just to mention, in Norway, most of the eye injuries happen over here during the New Year celebrations, when they put the rockets and all those kind of things. So for that, they have a big campaign every time during Christmas time. They start that you have to wear the protective eye shields, or the big spectacles with plastic glasses, so that you prevent this. Even the normal Phool-Jari and the other sparkling patake. So that is what they do over here. And of course, the other thing is the welding, because I'm a cornea person, so I've treated a lot of foreign bodies which kind of give a rust ring because of the placement on the cornea. And so for that also, they have very special shielded plastic spectacles, which are big, because it can come from the side as well. So those are the two things which are in Norway. And in India, what other injuries are? I don't know whether you get the children have to be protected well, that they don't come closer to scissors and those kind of sharp objects. And of course, housewives, knives.
Bow and arrow injuries were very common in earlier days.
Yes.
Now it's become lesser common.
Yeah, true, true, true. So otherwise, I don't know specifically for
Diwali
India.
season is now on. So you have told about the crackers. So
Yeah.
children, they use so many crackers during
Correct.
Diwali season. So it's an important message during this festival
This
season.
season, yes.
So thank you,
Yeah.
Dr. Benita. So I'll request any of the participants if they have any questions for the panelists. So they are welcome to ask, or they can put it in the chat box and then we can share. And this recording, it is available on YouTube, Cypher Strategic YouTube channel. So anybody can watch this, and all the participants, they can share it. And I also request you all to pledge on this World Sight Day. The link for the pledge is there, and we need to choose how you will commit to look after your eyes this World Sight Day. And you must pledge to prevent sight loss, preserve your sight, pledge to protect your eyes, and you must prioritize your eyes. So that is our message on World Sight Day. So, so Dr. Shok, if you have any comments, concluding comments, please.
I think I would like to thank all the participants, especially organizers like Dr. Rakesh Gupta, Professor Sonu Goel, and Dr. Rajan Sharma, and all others who have participated. I would especially like to thank Madam Indu Luthra, who is very active and has been always a guiding force, and Dr. Vanita, who joined us from Norway and suggested protective measures for eye injuries. Since this is a festive season, we have celebrated the Shara, but Diwali is coming. So a lot of festivities, and all these children, they are at risk of getting injuries, like because of crackers. So we need to take precautions as elders. We should not lose the sight of these children. They should not be allowed to ignite crackers independently, and also taking care of all the clothes and burn the crackers in open place, so that we can enjoy all these Diwali especially happily. So with thanks to everybody, I wish you all happy and safe Diwali. Thank you all.
So thank you all, and the YouTube channel link is also there. So you must watch it again if you want to watch it. And moreover, you can share with your friends and relatives so that they can also gain from it. So thank you all. So I think we need to leave now. Thank you.
Happy
Thank you.
Diwali, everybody.
Happy
Diwali.
Diwali.
Thank you so much.
Happy and safe Diwali. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, Karna. Leave.